Coming up tonight, it's a new sailing, a new line, new class, new ship, new everything. We hit the MSC Seaside for the first time. Plus, Miami gets overloaded with ships, and we take a look at the Atrium, the heart of the seaside. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day one of CruiseView from onboard the MSC Seaside. Today was Saturday, November 24th, 2018, and you heard that right, MSC Seaside, not of the seas, not Royal Caribbean. This is, of course, the MSC Seaside, the first non-Royal Caribbean ship we're doing on board the CruiseView. And today, of course, that means that is the top story. We have a brand new cruise line, bigger than a new ship, bigger than even a new class, an entirely new cruise line with a new design, new everything to go through and see what things are like. So this is going to be a very interesting sailing, a lot of new things to check out, new ways of doing things, and of course, all different new venues and dining options available to look at as well. So this is the MSC Seaside, the latest design from MSC Cruises. Of course, MSC is starting to make a move into the US market, and they have two current designs that they're building. One that is much bigger than this, a little more traditional cruise ship that MSC has, and then of course the MSC Seaside and its sister the Seaview, which are a completely new design, very different than some of the traditional ones. And that was part of what caught my eye when they first announced the Seaside class design, was that it was different. Out of all the different cruise lines that are out there, it's probably the most unique ship being built by a line that is not owned by Royal Caribbean. So that is the reason that I chose to check this ship out. But this is not the only part of this vacation, as has been the case with many of these. This is actually the second of three legs. We left out of Miami, so to get to here, November 24th, just after Thanksgiving, it was actually cheaper to spend the week in Disney World and see all that was going on there, including spending the Thanksgiving holiday in the theme parks, rather than flying down to Miami directly just before boarding the ship. So we actually got a longer vacation for less money, and this is like 2 of 3, which means there's another one after it. When we get off the Seaside on Saturday, we will be moving straight over to the Symphony of the Seas. So back to Royal Caribbean, a little more traditional to follow up this little more unusual sailing that we'll be dealing with this week. So with this sailing, it is a 7-night Caribbean sailing that starts out in Miami. Tomorrow we are going to have a day at sea. Then we will have an evening in Puerto Rico, a full day in St. Thomas, a visit to St. Martin, our second sea day, an evening in Nassau, and then back to Miami. So it's a bit of a busy itinerary, just 2 sea days on there, but we do have a couple port of calls that have some unusual timing, such as Puerto Rico, where we get there late in the evening and stay until 1 a.m. So that is pretty much a wash of a port and a sea day for most of it. So it's a little bit more than just those 2 sea days that are written on the paper. It is about 3.5 sea days that we'll have on this sailing. But for today was day 1, which meant we were leaving from Miami, Florida. This is the second time that I've left for Miami. 2007, I left from Miami on the Liberty of the Seas 4th sailing in June of 2007. So it has been quite a while since I was there, 11.5 years about. So a lot has changed, a lot of new terminals, and even a brand new tunnel to help bring traffic into the port and try to ease congestion. If you've ever been to Miami in the past, you know that you had to actually enter the city and make a right at a light, left at another light, just to get into the port, and that always backed up and caused congestion. Now you can get straight from the highway into a tunnel into the port. Unfortunately today that seemed to back up as well. There was a ton of traffic trying to get into the port. There were 7 or 8 ships in port today, so it was a very busy day, but looking ahead, no more busy than we're going to see next Saturday and the following Saturday. So it was a very busy day, and even that new tunnel could not keep up with the demand. And unfortunately, that led to some delays. When we reached the terminal, MSC uses Terminal F, which was renovated for them last year before the Seaside arrived there. And right in the doors, they had some signs notifying about potential delays because of things that had occurred in the port that morning, and some delays in getting passengers off the ship that would result in delays getting on. But as I mentioned, it wasn't just us in port, it was 7 ships, and everybody in the port was delayed. And it's kind of unusual because they claim the reason was port traffic, too many ships trying to figure out who's going when. But this is, as I mentioned, the standard number of ships that will be here all season, and of course, they already have an order. They had different times from 3:30 all the way through 5 o'clock to depart, so it wasn't like they're all set at the same time. And every single ship, including the first one that was scheduled to depart, was late today. So in port, the first ship that actually ended up leaving was the Norwegian Bliss, which sailed right past us, turned around in the basin, and then returned back up the channel and actually appeared to dock a second time, which is very unusual. Not sure what the reason of that was, because if there was port congestion, you wouldn't need to dock in order to allow it to clear or get out. But she did appear to not only turn towards her dock, but actually get close enough to tie off. I couldn't see whether she actually did tie or not, but she was certainly close enough to do that. And then following her, once she was by and started to depart again, the Carnival Sensation then left her port and turned around in the basin as well, sailing right past us and back again. And once she reached the Carnival Glory followed her out, and as soon as she was past the Celebrity Equinox, which was scheduled for a 3:30 departure, she actually followed her out as well, leaving closer to 6 o'clock than the 3:30 scheduled departure, with everybody leaving after 5 p.m. So not a single ship even left before the last was supposed to leave. But finally, when it was our turn, we left a little after 6, following the Celebrity Equinox right out. And kind of cool to see, right across the port from us was the Asmar Journey, and she departed the exact same moment as us, so we had both those ships kind of sailing in parallel right down past the port on either side. On the way out, we of course passed the Symphony of the Seas. She did not depart, and when we sailed past her, it did not look like her lines were in any way loosened, and there was nobody on the pier to even attempt to loosen, so she did not appear to be leaving anytime soon when we had gone past her. But everybody on board was ready for that departure. Her top decks were loaded, and they were certainly excited and ready to get that vacation underway as we sailed by. You could hear coming from that ship as they cheered on our ship and their ship. But that wasn't the end of the ship spotting for today, because it is 1:30 in the morning right now, and there's several ships around us. There's currently some kind of Carnival ship, could be Han America off in the distance, can't tell what that one is. The Holland America Amsterdam ship was sailing parallel to us. We've now passed it. The Bliss was sailing behind us. At some point, I must have missed it. We probably sailed past her because she did depart before us. And the Celebrity Equinox, which we will actually see in almost every port except St. Martin, is sailing just a little bit ahead of us off on our port side, and she will likely remain there most of this cruise because we will be following the same exact route pretty much. So as for our weather today, we had a sunrise this morning at 6:45 a.m., obviously before I ever got to the ship, and a sunset tonight at 5:29 p.m., and that was beautiful over the city of Miami, over that city line. It was an absolutely gorgeous departure today, one of the nicest I've seen. A lot of it because we had a full moon out tonight, partly cloudy skies, and for that absolutely beautiful sunset leading to the darkness, and it was just an absolutely beautiful departure. And our temperatures today, the daily planner lists the temperature 94, Weather Channel and the mobile app says a little bit closer to the 80s, thinking it was a little more in the 80s, but either way it was an absolutely warm day for that arrival on board the MSC Seaside. So before we go into the daily planner, I want to take a step back, look at what got us to this point in this cruise, starting with about a year and a half ago when I first booked the MSC Seaside. And this is a new experience, of course, dealing with Royal Caribbean, very technology heavy, trying to push the limits, a lot of times it gets them in trouble. MSC is very old school, very limited in what you can do online and what they have to offer. But we did receive, it's kind of interesting, some pre-boarding notices. The one came out a little less than a week ago, actually was a letter emailed to every passenger from the captain himself, basically welcoming everybody to the Seaside, giving some background on the ship and what its amenities are. Sure, it was sent out by corporate, but it was a nice little thing to see, to actually have them acknowledge not just that we're going to be on the ship, but actually the captain and the executive officers on board the ship before we even arrive, because that is something that in all of my years with Royal Crew we have never really heard. They really don't acknowledge the officers anywhere except on the ship, so it's kind of neat to see that email go out, not just acknowledging them, but making sure that you were aware of who your captain was going to be once you got on board the ship. And then technology, as I mentioned, they did use some technology, but they did not use it well. Royal Caribbean always has their website issues, and MSC is no different. Their website is very, very dated and old, and it works about as good as a dated and old website can work. Throughout our process, things like trying to book excursions or even just look at excursions, even checking in and doing the pre-cruise details was a hassle. Trying to pay for the cruise itself was almost impossible on the website. I actually had to find some backdoors to figure out where the link was for it, because it just was not there on certain pages and there on others, and you could not get to the place to pay for your cruise without trying to jimmy rig a backdoor to get to the payment screen, which is very odd because obviously they're going to want that money. But it definitely seemed like using the website, trying to do anything before arriving, was not really working well or necessarily intended on their part. They seem to be very reliant on when you get here, that's when your vacation kind of starts and you start getting everything ready and in order for it. And part of that is through their mobile app, the MSC For Me app. This is another one of those weird things. They have the MSC For Me app. You can use it at home. You can download it to your phone, open it up. It asks you for your confirmation number, your last name, and it connects your account so that you have your personal account in the MSC For Me app. Allows you to look at some different things like details of your reservation, get yourself familiar with the ship and the itinerary, look at excursions, some of the basic elements that you would expect. And you'd think, well, if you registered all that at home, when you get on the ship, you connect to the Wi-Fi here, you'll have access to that stuff and maybe some more stuff now that you're actually on board the ship and have direct access to all the data and offerings of this cruise. But when you get on the ship, the app doesn't work anymore. You get on the ship, you launch it, and it immediately asks you to log into an account that does not exist, that does not match the one that you used for the MSC website, does not match the one that you used to log into the app at home. You now have to create a third account to use exclusively on board the ship on your phone with an app that most likely you will never log into another device with. So to register an actual username and password just seems very unusual and cumbersome, because it not only requires you to register and set up an account, it actually needs a unique ID number that is printed on your card. So your key card to get into your room has an internet ID number, and you must use that in order to get through the steps to actually set up an account to access the MSC For Me app. So it's very cumbersome setup process to do. And the app itself actually works pretty nice. The daily planner works nice, looks good. It is not overly featured filled. Things like the menus do not appear to be there, but at least the daily planner is there, and for today at least seem to be accurate. They also have a live ship map where it can tell where you are in the ship, which is really useful and handy, but it's a little bit cumbersome. It doesn't really fit to the screen well. It's a little bit awkward to move around, and some of the labels are just hard to read and overlap, don't really fit the map well. But that is there to help you find your way around the ship and get everything organized, including booking all of your main theater shows. There are theater shows every single night of the cruise, and they're all right in the MSC For Me app. You can also go to any of the digital screens around the ship, tap your card, and get access to your account in order to book reservations for that. And all that must be done on board the ship. You cannot do that at home, even with the MSC For Me app. It's exclusively on board. And that makes this first day a little bit hectic as you try to figure that out, whether you need it or not, and trying to get these elements sorted that on many other lines you've got booked before you even arrive. So it certainly is a different experience we're used to with Royal Caribbean, where they really force you to plan everything long in advance, all your dining, all of your shows, and have everything completely finalized before you get close to the ship, because pretty much a month after they open, some of the shows can already be full with Royal Caribbean. So looking at our boarding process then, as I mentioned, we were in Terminal F, the terminal that was renovated for MSC last year for the arrival of the ship. And we took a rental car from Disney World down here, so we dropped it off at Miami International, took the rental shuttle over to the port, and arrived at Terminal F at about 12:30. As I mentioned, lots of backup and congestion through the port area. But even in the terminal was some backup and congestion as well, with people trying to get through there. So we did not actually get on the ship until about 1:15. So it was a pretty lengthy process to get through the terminal, probably the longest one I've had in recent sailings. And once on board though, it wasn't long after that the rooms were actually ready. Before the 2 o'clock, it was probably about 1:30, 1:40, they made the announcement that the rooms were officially ready and you could go back to them. Then the one other thing I want to mention about getting to this point, when this ship was first announced, not only did MSC announce the ship, the Seaside, they actually announced a brand new port for it. So new ship, new port. This is all about MSC trying to get into the US market. They want to take on all the cruise lines that have their niches at Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, Carnival. They want to be a part of the big boys and take on the American market. That is, of course, the biggest cruise market in the world, and MSC has a pretty good holding on the European market, but at this point they do not have a foothold in the US market. They've had the Divina in Miami for years, but the Seaside is the first ship from MSC to actually be built for the American market, to be delivered and sail directly to the US market, be christened in Miami in the United States. It really is a ship for MSC to try and go after the American market. And one of the elements that was going to make that a possibility for them was having a private island. All the other cruise lines have one. MSC wanted to have one as well, Ocean Cay, located in the Bahamas. And the full name is Ocean Cay Marine Reserve, because not only is it going to be an island for beaches, it's going to have a lot of stuff to preserve the natural coral and the fish and sea life in general. And as part of this project, of course, they took this island in the Bahamas, completely redid it, tried to make it friendly for the ship, including a dock for getting passengers on board without having to tender over. But this was delayed. It was supposed to be ready for the ship's arrival last year. Didn't happen. We delayed our booking for this. They actually did not open sailings for the fall until about 6 months after every other ship had its sailings, including all the ones for this ship up through the start of November. And once they finally put them up, it once again included Ocean Cay. The original ones had it and had it removed. These were held back, so it seemed like it was a pretty safe bet Ocean Cay would be ready in time for her now, since they held back so far. But unfortunately, once again, it was delayed for another year. So it's about 2 years behind schedule at this point. It is not going to open until potentially spring of 2020. So it has certainly taken them a long time to get this island ready, and they definitely did not really understand the full scope of what they were trying to accomplish, because from the concept art, it is certainly a massive project and huge undertaking they're trying to pull off here. So we are on board the Seaside. First impressions? Certainly different than Royal Caribbean. It doesn't look or feel in any way like a Royal Caribbean ship. The layout is completely different, but the biggest thing that has stood out to me about this ship is the use of scale and perspective. There's a very unusual element to this ship that I never would have guessed coming in. The ceilings are actually very low. In a lot of areas, you just get this very odd feeling of the ceilings being close enough to actually hit you in the head because they are very low ceilings. And that's something I've never experienced on another ship before this one, but there are a lot of areas on the ship I've walked through and just got that feeling that the ceiling was extra low for some reason at that point. And in addition to that, they try to make spaces feel larger by using mirrors everywhere. Almost everywhere you look on the ship, there are reflective surfaces, actually just mirrors for walls in some areas, to try to make venues look double their size, try to make everything look bigger than it really is. So that's certainly a different approach than we've seen with Royal Caribbean, where everything is an actual gigantic venue. Here, it's a lot of small, tiny venues, but they do a lot of effort into making them look and feel significantly larger than they really are. Now let's get into our daily planner, the first one ever for MSC, and that is the name of theirs. They do have the daily planner. It is very similar to the cruise compass on Royal Caribbean. Features all the times for dining venues, activities on board, some highlights of what's going on, and of course the full schedule of all the activities happening throughout the day. So for today, first day on board, the big thing is always that muster drill that everybody must attend. And that did, of course, start at about 4:15, pretty much on time. Lasted about 15 minutes, probably a little bit less than that. Went through all the usual safety procedures. This time my muster station was actually in the theater on board. So nice comfy chairs, relaxing environment. Lately we've of course had a lot of muster drills in the theaters on board ships. So following the muster drill, of course, went up to the top deck for sail away. Supposed to be at 5 o'clock, didn't happen until about 6 o'clock, a little bit later than that. And the first thing I noticed was there's very little sea views on this ship. It's called the Seaside. There's a lot of connection to the sea. You see it everywhere you look. There's a lot of outside areas to walk, a lot of areas to even eat. That's the big thing I noticed, is there's tons of outside eating on this ship compared to anything I've ever seen before on a cruise ship. But the top deck of the ship is also used for the MSC Yacht Club, the suite-only area, and that pretty much occupies the front half of the ship at the top decks. So there is absolutely nowhere on the ship you can go to see forward. You have plenty of areas to go to see back, but you have no idea where the ship's actually going, what's ahead of us. So that's gonna definitely be a problem once we reach some of the ports. And we of course want to see our arrival into there and what's coming up ahead of us. It does not seem like there is any place to actually be able to see that view, only what's behind us. So with our arrival at 6 o'clock then, dinner for this sailing is at the Seashore Restaurant for us. That is a 5:30 early seating. They have 3 seatings on this ship, 5:30, 7:30, and 9:30. They also have a second restaurant that has 3 seatings, each 15 minutes earlier than the Seashore Restaurant. But for today, wanted to see that departure. There were 7 ships in port, a ton of ships to see, a lot of excitement. Beautiful view of the skyline. Could not miss that, which meant unfortunately had to miss the very first dinner of this cruise and instead went to the Marketplace Buffet for dinner. That's the same place we went for lunch today when we boarded. Absolutely incredible buffet. Royal Caribbean has been getting better with their buffets, but MSC has figured something out here. The setup has different stations and a little more of a traditional buffet look to it, but there's tons of seating all the way around it inside and tons of outdoor seating. But what's really nice is the buffet repeats itself in a circle. So instead of going down the left or the right, you can go around, and when you get to the end of the buffet, the next station is the first station again. So if you're at the back of the ship or the front of the ship, you can get access to all the food with only half that venue. You don't have to walk all the way to the other end of the venue just to get something, because on both sides it's in the exact same spot. So that is certainly a well thought out plan for it, and the food was incredible. There's so much variety to that buffet, so many unusual options, a lot of different international tastes in there, and they all just tasted authentic and incredible food in there. The only negative I saw was dinner tonight was very much the same lineup that we saw for lunch. So hopefully going forward we'll see some variety in the lunches. We of course haven't been seeing that from Royal Caribbean, and we'll see if they have a little more variety in the dinner. Not sure if I'll get to one or just be able to stop in and take a peek at it, but hopefully we'll see they have a little more variety in the dinner and some different items than what they have for lunch. So following that dinner, there were a couple activities tonight, starting at 7 o'clock in the Haven, which is a large lounge on board. They had a special celebration party hosted by the cruise director, and that basically was a welcome aboard party for anybody that wanted to celebrate something. Everyone was invited. Anything you had to celebrate you could, and they had complimentary drinks as well as a large cake to cut for everybody. So that was at 7 o'clock for about an hour, 7 to 8. I left a little bit earlier because that was the time period I did go to eat dinner then. And then at 8:45, they had a welcome cruise and youth staff right here in the Atrium. And that was similar to what we've seen on a traditional Captain's Welcome reception, where all the different crew members are introduced, but on a much larger scale, going all the way down to pretty much everybody that you see the face of, all the people that are working on the sports deck and the youth program everywhere throughout the ship, to introduce everybody by name and make you aware of who they are, what their role is, what they do. And then, so that was 8:45. At 9:15 then I had my very first of the production shows on board. Tonight it was Frank Forever, which was a show dedicated to Frank Sinatra, featuring singers and dancers performing some Frank Sinatra songs in the Metropolitan Theater at the front of the ship. That lasted about 40 minutes and actually started with the cruise director introducing himself and some of his staff members to everybody. They had 3 of those shows tonight. There was one at 8 o'clock, 9:15, and one a little bit later. So you had a variety of times that you could pick from to go see that show. And they did require reservations for it. When we were entering, we actually saw somebody that was trying to get in and didn't have a reservation, and they were trying to figure out whether he actually booked a reservation for him and whoever was traveling with him, or just had the one person booked for it. And they didn't seem like they were just going to let him in, which is unusual because inside the theater was half empty. It was very empty, and even in the app, it's kind of nice. They let you see how many seats are open in a show, so before you cancel one and move to another, you know exactly how many are there and whether or not that's going to work. And it appeared there were like 500 seats available in that venue, so doesn't seem like many people showed up for tonight's show. I don't know if that's normal on MSC or not. We'll see over the next few days, but it definitely is very unusual that they require these reservations, and you could only make these reservations on board the ship, but they're not letting people really into the show without those, and even assisting them in making those reservations just to allow them in the door, which is a bit of an unusual hurdle to put in front of people for what's a very basic element of the cruise. Following that, they then pretty much repeated the event from the Atrium. They had a welcome night with the cruise staff, this time without the youth staff, and this took place in the Haven Lounge instead of the Atrium, smaller venue, and it was just the stuff that's a little more for the adults rather than all of the children's staff being involved in this one, but it was the same exact event hosted by the same people, introducing the same members.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on the zip line. Does anyone like slides?
And at the same time that started, 10:30, out here in the Atrium, they had Latin Fever, which featured some of the dancers from the Metropolitan Theater, as well as singers performing some Latin dances and music. And that was the first event that we really saw out there, and it seems like something that they do a lot, little mini bites of entertainment and activity out here in the venue. For the most part, people don't seem to show up or plan around them, but once they start, people seem to crowd around and gather to see them. So this is something we've seen attempted with Quantum and some other ships, and it never quite worked out, but for MSC at least, it seems like it is working to have these little bites of entertainment to gather people around and offer something a little bit unusual when you're passing through. That about did it for the daily planner. The ship really does go to bed early. By about midnight, all the activities are wrapped up. There's actually about a 6-hour period in the middle of the night where there's no food even served on board. So it certainly has some issues with the nighttime. It's not like Royal Caribbean where it's 4 a.m. that I'm recording these things and there's still some stuff going on. For the most part, the people that are out are just kind of wondering, looking for something, and there really isn't a whole lot happening at this time of the night. And it's only 1:50 at this point, so it is still early for the standard that I've had in the past. So moving on from our daily planner, we do have some tours in this one. It is a new class, new ship, new line, a whole lot of new things going on, and that means we got some venue tours, a whole lot of venue tours. And tonight we're going to start with the first thing you see on the ship, the heart of the Seaside, its Atrium, and all of the venues it encompasses. The Atrium on the MSC Seaside is the heart of the ship. Spanning decks 5 through 8, this large area located 2/3 of the way back on the ship creates more than just a central staircase. It's the largest gathering space on board, and as such, has been specifically designed to double as an entertainment venue. With an open floor on deck 5 and stages on decks 6, 7, and 8, the space allows for performances and parties throughout the sailing, while a series of large video screens allows the atmosphere to be transformed with each moment. While the venue as a whole doubles as an entertainment space, each deck has its own personality and style. Deck 5 centers around the Seaside Bar with the guest services desk, and Future Cruise desk on either side of the space. The forward area features the photo gallery at the entrance of the Emotions Immersive Gallery. This walkthrough experience features photos and videos from the sailing and the activities on board to create an experience for guests as they pass between the atrium and the art gallery located at the forward end of the hallway. Building on the style of Deck 5, Deck 6 continues a very similar atmosphere of red, black, and silver. Each side features ample seating, while the port side has the shine bar, and the starboard side is home to the main MSC Excursions desk. Contrasting the dark decor of Decks 5 and 6, Deck 7 features a more modern and significantly brighter style of white and silver. This refreshing decor accents the primary venue of the area, the Champagne Bar. The top deck takes on a completely new style as the area is transformed into a French bistro. Located on the port side, this small bistro offers a variety of drinks and at one time served food, though that has been discontinued. The starboard side features the MSC logo shop and even more seating. Decks 6, 7, and 8 feature a 3-level glass wall on either side of the atrium. Directly outside of it on deck number 8, the waterfront boardwalk area travels along this glass wall with the Infinity Bridge, a fittingly glass-floored walkway offering guests a unique experience to feel even more connected to the ocean. So as I mentioned in the planner, they do hold some little events in the atrium, like those little parties and dances, different performances, but it is also the center of the ship, and you're passing forward and back. You go through here all the time, changing decks. It is a great way to come up and down because there are stairs right there. It is the heart of the ship and a place that you will spend a lot of time, maybe not necessarily sitting in, but at least passing through it every day. And then the daily dine is back. We have a new dining venue, which means we have to do a daily dine for it. Today we are going to be looking at the Marketplace Buffet. That is the place that I had both lunch and dinner today. It is the primary buffet on the ship, and it is a massive venue. Unique to the MSC Seaside is not one, but two buffets. The Marketplace Buffet is the largest buffet on board the MSC Seaside, located in the unusual location of deck number 8 aft. This buffet has easy access from the main areas of the ship, with an entrance directly off the atrium, as well as the panoramic aft elevator that connects it directly to both the South Beach area below and the Miami pool deck on the top deck. At first glance, the venue features a traditional buffet style with a long buffet that wraps around a large center square. But in reality, it is a series of small buffet stations that are positioned around the square, preventing the long line syndrome of traditional buffets and easing congestion. In a unique twist, instead of being mirrored with each side identical, the stations are ordered in a repeating pattern, so you are never more than halfway around from a station. With ample seating inside, the venue takes on a unique characteristic as it is surrounded by the waterfront boardwalk, offering a large sunny seating area along either side, as well as a pair of covered aft decks. With nearly half of its seating outside, the Marketplace Buffet is the perfect place to enjoy a breakfast in the morning, lunch in the afternoon, or dinner in the evening. In addition to those 3 meals served daily, the Marketplace Buffet is also the location to get food in the evening, as the grill, pizzeria, and desserts stay open late. And as I mentioned, that is one of 2 buffets on board the ship, the other being up higher and significantly smaller. The Marketplace is the largest buffet, and that is the one that's open the latest. It's actually located right behind me at the moment, but I believe they closed about a half hour ago at this point. That about does it for today's episode. A lot of new things going on, a lot of ships to see. This is going to be a loaded sailing, so if you like ship spotting, stay tuned for that, because Symphony, we're going to have 1 ship in port. This one, every port is loaded with ships. So there's going to be a lot of ship spotting in this one, and it appears, based on the fact that I'm looking out the window right now, you can still see the Celebrity Equinox. We're going to have ship spotting even when we're out in the middle of the ocean all night long, sea days. Every day seems like it might be a ship spotting day on this sailing. So be sure to come back tomorrow, see what's going on board the Seaside, check out all the venues, and of course, see what ships are still around us once the sun rises tomorrow morning. As always, I'm Picone. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the links.